Welcome back. This is the second video in a three-part series on the Canelo Bivol fight. So let's jump right in, starting with Bivol's offense. Bivol's style is built off of the jab. He maintains a high jab volume from bell to bell and uses it in multiple ways. Jabbing while circling to attack Canelo's centerline was a fundamental part of his offense, and he did so by taking advantage of the rhythmic way Canelo redistributes his weight over each foot when he steps. Bivol timed his jabs to split Canelo's high guard when he was leaning forward heavy on his front foot. This was also when Bivol circled left to expose Canelo's centerline. When Bivol circled around, Canelo would reposition himself the same way he moves around in his stance, by stepping one foot at a time and redistributing his weight. Here we see Canelo shift his weight over to his rear foot so he can reposition his lead foot as Bivol circles. Normally, when Canelo gets back foot heavy to move his lead foot forward, his head stays mostly centered between each foot. Bivol circling to the left forced Canelo to use a heavier back foot weight distribution. In order to move his lead foot to the right to adjust the angle, he also had to lean his head over his back foot, getting even heavier on it. Bivol's jab lands before Canelo can adjust his feet, and the impact to his exposed centerline knocks his head a few inches back, putting him fully over his back foot. Canelo is unable to do anything from this position until he recovers his balance. Throughout the fight, Bivol will repeatedly jab Canelo into this position before committing to his power shots, ensuring Canelo is unable to counter him. Slight forward lean with feet far apart makes Canelo front foot heavy as his rear foot steps. The weight shifts from left to right once his rear foot lands and lead foot steps. Both Bivol's jab and Canelo's pullback brings his weight from front to even. The next jab pushes him from even to his back foot. After getting put onto his back foot, Canelo would often overcorrect when trying to resume his footwork. He would keep his rear foot planted and step his lead foot again as he leaned forward. His forward lean would get too deep when his feet were farther apart. Punches that hit Canelo in this position will force him to reset his feet again. Canelo gets jabbed as his guard is raising and his lead foot steps, but his torso hasn't leaned forward yet. Rear foot stays planted, lead foot steps again. He overcorrects, leaning past his lead foot. Forcing Canelo onto his back foot creates a window of opportunity for Bivol to throw power shots without the risk of a counter. While attacking, if he saw Canelo was raising up from the bottom of his slip, Bivol stepped in with straight punches or with his lead arm extended in order to keep Canelo off balance and continue his attack. If that didn't prevent Canelo from recovering his balance, he'd step back with his lead arm extended to maintain traffic in that punching lane and keep Canelo occupied. Bivol's extended lead arm keeps Canelo on his back foot. To get it out of his face, Canelo often parried it down. Feeling this parry on his lead hand in mid-range let Bivol know when to step back. Canelo parries and Bivol steps back. Canelo overcorrects and his rear foot step takes longer than usual. His centerline is exposed, his feet are out of position, and his guard isn't in place. Bivol's leaping hook is a bit too slow to take advantage. Bivol also used combination punching to circle around and attack the centerline. And while effective, the punches after Bivol had exposed the centerline tended not to land as cleanly. Even for a highly mobile fighter like Bivol, power punching while moving takes longer than jabbing while moving, and the extra split second helped Canelo create distance to mitigate these punches. We can look at Bivol's footwork to understand why these punches didn't land as cleanly. Here's an example showing how Bivol's version of the Soviet style punches with hip and torso rotation, but minimal foot rotation. His rear foot stays on the ball of the foot, pointing to the right. Bivol's size advantage meant that, even without fully rotating his lower body, he still generated enough power that Canelo had trouble blocking punches cleanly. Bivol leaps around to attack the centerline. The sleeping jab forces Canelo to reset his feet. The cross touches Canelo, but his backward movement mitigates it. Bivol attacks immediately after this exchange and catches Canelo while he was bringing his back foot forward. Canelo, maintaining a constant footwork rhythm between exchanges, let Bivol catch him by surprise like this on multiple occasions. However, in this instance, Bivol's attack starts from out of range. Because Bivol initiated from out of range and threw a 1-2 instead of double jabbing around, Canelo was again able to push off his lead foot and create distance. Bivol's hips and torso pivot on the cross while his rear foot stays pointing outward. Keeping an upright torso with feet far apart while front foot heavy means your back foot can only lightly touch the ground. Since Bivol is unable to push off his rear foot, his swivel jab falls short. When Bivol threw combinations and leapt around to attack the centerline, Canelo was often able to create distance and mitigate it. By contrast, timing his jab on Canelo's forward lean to disrupt his balance was more energy efficient, and circling around with multiple jabs let Bivol get closer before throwing power shots. Bivol times Canelo's step with a 1-2-1, then leaps around. Torso and hips pivot on the body cross, but not the rear foot. After the leap, his feet are too far apart to push off his rear foot, so he drags it forward while his lead foot stays in place on the lead hook. Bivol still exposes Canelo's centerline with faster footwork, but since he wasn't jabbing him onto his back foot, Canelo could bring his lead foot and guard forward to block punches. This next clip shows how, for Canelo, being fully set in his stance when Bivol attacked was essential for preserving his balance, which he needed for footwork and head movement, and for Bivol, how important it was to disrupt Canelo's balance by circling to attack the centerline. Before the jab, Canelo was fully in position, his forward lean with feet planted and guard in place. The 1-2 from the front breaks through his guard, but it doesn't knock him off balance. With his balance intact, Canelo is able to pull back to avoid the hook and immediately slip right. The result of Bivol throwing the 1-2-3 while staying in front of Canelo is that Canelo is still balanced, and he can start moving his head without having to adjust his feet first. The importance of circling to expose Canelo's centerline is made even clearer by seeing how, without that angle, Bivol's next 20 punches are all evaded.
This is just an incredibly difficult fight Canelo's in. He hasn't figured out a way to get to Dmitry Bivol.
But Bivol has found a way to get to Canelo. And the reason he's finding a way is because it's his footwork. He doesn't smother himself coming in.
When Canelo leaned forward in mid-range, Bivol would sometimes throw a particular combination designed to disrupt his balance by using the movement of his torso against him. The lead hook lands as Canelo's leaning in, pushing him over his lead foot. Then, the rear uppercut either catches Canelo slipping down into it or forces him to pull his torso back up to avoid it. As his torso is coming back up, the jab pushes him onto his back foot and the cross keeps him there. Canelo overcorrects and Bivol times his combo to it.
See, aiming at that chip, at that arm. The left arm of Bivol now is ready.
Counterpunching is most effective when the opponent commits to their punch. Sitting down to generate power leaves them stationary for a moment, and if they overcommit to the punch by over-rotating or overstepping, they're more vulnerable while out of position. It's also easier when an opponent initiates their attack from out of range. giving you an extra split second of reaction time as they have to cover additional distance. Bivol gave Canelo minimal opportunities to effectively counter him. He precisely controlled the commitment he put into his probing jabs, and his reach advantage and responsive footwork ensured he stayed at long range while doing so. And by timing his jabs to take advantage of Canelo's rhythmic movements, Bivol was able to commit to power shots while Canelo was not in a position to counter. The next clips show how Bivol defended against the counters Canelo did attempt. Keeping his lead arm extended after the jab creates traffic in that punching lane, discouraging counter attempts on that side. Bivol always kept his rear hand high in his guard. Bivol's high volume of long-range probing jabs may be why Canelo seemed to prioritize his high guard and forward lean when in range, instead of trying to slip and counter. This is also what we saw in the clips from the Kovalev fight. It made more sense for him to prioritize backing Bivol up to the ropes with power punches, which he set up with his forward lean. However, Canelo still needed a way to deal with Bivol's jabs. While in his forward lean, Canelo often tried to deal with Bivol's jabs by parrying with his rear hand. These parries occasionally prevented the jab from landing, but did nothing to stop Bivol's ability to continue attacking. Canelo had difficulty whenever he tried to parry while his torso was moving around or while Bivol was circling on his jabs, since the trajectories of both his parry and the jab were changing. Bivol's upright torso and wide base helped him maintain his balance when his jab was parried down or to the side. Bivol's probing and pawing jabs were used to distract, block vision, draw a reaction, and disrupt balance. These were low commitment jabs, thrown without full extension and only retracted halfway when doubled up. Essentially, Bivol is throwing these jabs by bending at the elbow while keeping his upper arm stabilized in place. This extra bit of body control makes it less likely a parry would affect his balance, even when stepping on his jab. Jab only retracts halfway. Upper arm stays up and out. Bivol is stepping in. Canelo parries, no effect on Bivol's balance. Canelo parries again, Bivol remains in position to attack. Bivol lands across to the body here. Throughout the fight, he mixes in straights to the body when Canelo is standing upright or on his back foot. Bivol's straight body punch at this moment is smart punch selection for multiple reasons. Mixing punches to the body and head keeps an opponent guessing. Bivol's mobile, Soviet-style footwork means he tends to have fewer opportunities to sit down and attack the body in close range, but he can still attack the body at long range with straight punches. Canelo's body is also more exposed to straight punches while standing upright, compared to his forward lean. When Canelo is upright, the punch's impact puts him on his back foot, and if he's already on his back foot, the punch will keep him there an extra moment. With Canelo on his back foot, Bivol commits to the jab, full extension and torso rotation. Here's an example of Bivol reacting differently to Canelo's parry at different ranges. Parry from mid-range, Bivol steps back. Parry from long range, Bivol threatens the lead hook. As we saw in the stance rhythm examples, when one part of the body is moving in a rhythm, other parts also tend to be. When the torso moves in a rhythm, the guard often does too. This is because the arms reposition to maintain the same center of gravity as the torso moves. I call this repositioning of the arms counterbalancing because by acting as a counterweight to maintain the fighter's center of gravity as their weight distribution changes, the arms help to maintain balance. To make this counterbalancing concept clearer, let's look at a few examples of how Canelo sometimes sets up his lead uppercut by slipping left and extending his right hand to counterbalance. Canelo's guard rhythm involves raising his high guard as he gets front foot heavy, sometimes during a lead foot step, and lowering it as his weight shifts to even or back foot heavy, sometimes during his rear foot step. Canelo's guard rhythm was a reliably predictable movement for Bivol to time his jab to. His guard being in motion at the moment of impact also made it easier for Bivol's punches to break through. This made timing Canelo's guard rhythm especially effective for Bivol, as his size advantage was already making it difficult for Canelo to block punches, even when his guard was in position. Canelo on his back foot, Bivol extends his lead hand. You can see the full rhythm here. Guard raises, lead foot steps, and torso starts to lean. Having pulled back from front to even, gloves are low in range while lead foot is stepping. Gloves drop again as weight goes from front to even.
And that's why Bivol's going to be such a hard fight.
Bivol jabs when Canelo is upright, with guard low and his lead foot is stepping. But he attacks from out of range, so Canelo has time to plant his foot and push off. Canelo pushes off and shuffles back to bail out quickly. He executes his backward shuffle perfectly, finishing with his weight evenly distributed. However, by immediately returning to his usual footwork rhythm, he gets caught unprepared when Bivol continues attacking. This video doesn't include clips of Canelo against the ropes, since he often spent 30 seconds or more there at a time, waiting and hoping to bait Bivol into attacks that might open him up to counters. This is just one example to show how Bivol stayed disciplined in keeping the fight at long range. Here he extends his lead hand and uses a long range hook.
Here in Vegas.
Circle and attack the center line. Canelo's guard raises with the usual rhythm. Anticipating an overcorrection, Bivol times his lead hook for the forward lean, but Canelo doesn't overcorrect. In the next section, we'll look at how Canelo made an effort to minimize his torso movement to avoid situations like this. Bivol jabs the body opening created by the pullback. He attacks again before Canelo resets his feet. Canelo started to show signs of fatigue in the 7th round. His guard rhythm became more noticeable, dropping low and his weight shifts onto his back foot. Probing jabs to the high guard. His guard lowers on his pullback, so Bivol jabs harder. Another tactic Bivol used was to push Canelo off balance, using the same body mechanics as his jab, splitting the high guard and pushing off his back foot while stepping left. Also note Bivol's decision to push into Canelo when his torso is upright. In the 3rd round, Canelo starts making an effort to limit how much his torso moves when he steps. He stays more upright as he moves around by keeping his feet closer together and taking smaller steps. Without the predictable rhythm of Canelo's forward lean, Bivol was a bit more hesitant to attack, but he adapted by pushing more with his lead hand to disrupt Canelo's balance when he was upright. Additionally, by taking smaller steps but maintaining the same footwork rhythm, Canelo was less able to cut off the ring laterally to prevent Bivol from circling around him. Canelo steps with minimal torso lean. Bivol can circle around easily, but his jab to Canelo's centerline doesn't force as big of a reset. Having forced Canelo to readjust with his jab, Bivol times his forward lean with the lead hook. With less torso movement, Canelo doesn't overcorrect over his front foot and can return to even instead of his back foot after. Staying upright leaves Canelo more susceptible to being pushed off balance. Bivol's push forces Canelo onto his back foot, which sets up his attack. This attack forces Canelo farther onto his back foot, and this time he overcorrects. Canelo oversteps his rear foot. Seeing the forward lean, Bivol is jabbed into the high guard, and will follow with a cross to the body as Canelo leans back. Canelo parries 2 jabs while realigning his feet. Bivol breaks his jab rhythm, feinting a level change and stepping back with a jab. A defensively responsible fighter, Canelo has a good habit of moving his head when an opponent's feint draws a reaction from him. But Bivol was prepared for this. Canelo slips left after the feint, so he throws a lead hook to the side of Canelo's head exposed by the parry. Throughout the fight, Bivol used this level change feint to break his rhythm, and Canelo tended to react with a parry and slip left. Extended lead hand as Canelo raises up from his slip, then straight punches to put him on his back foot. The next few clips show Canelo coming forward with minimal torso movement for Bivol to time him with.
Bivol not throwing back as much this round. That's what Dmitry Bivol is so great at. What do you make of his demeanor so far, Daniel?
Bivol's demeanor to me seems as if he's just trying to weather the storm right now because
Bivol's back hits the ropes, he gets right in the center of the ring. That's ring.
Keeping his feet closer together and taking smaller steps while using the same footwork rhythm meant that Canelo moved around more slowly. He could adjust his feet more easily to protect his centerline, but it was also easier for Bivol to circle around him.
Generalship, and that's the reason Canelo's having a hard time pinning down Dmitry Bivol. I think Canelo's going to have to be content with hitting shoulders, arms, and forearms in this fight because Bivol, his defense is too tight.
Near the ropes, Bivol starts shuffling. Canelo's rear foot pivots clockwise as it steps to expose Bivol's centerline. Canelo momentarily gets T position, but isn't in range to take advantage.
Is this the type of fight you thought we'd see in the 6th round? Fight against Sergey Kovalev, as we talked about earlier, was very close until Canelo changed everything in a hurry, getting the knockout victory.
Canelo walks Bivol down to the ropes from here, staying upright. When his rear foot steps forward, it gets very close to his lead foot.
Now, this fight is representatively more of a Caleb Plant fight, I believe, because Plant, he was having his moments, and a lot of
This jab doesn't disrupt Canelo's balance, but the lead hook after it does. Bringing his rear foot close to his lead foot in this stance means he doesn't have a wide base to brace himself against hooks that impact him from the side. Bivol often tries to attack first when he's near the ropes. This is a good tactic against a pressure fighter, since you know another attack is coming soon to put you on the ropes if you don't act first. Forcing the engagement while you still have space behind you to maneuver can lead to a better outcome. However, against a fighter like Canelo, you still need to set up your attacks. Bivol did so by timing Canelo's steps as he walked him down with a constant rhythm. He sometimes did so by setting a trap first with his shuffle footwork. Bivol was also consistently aware of when he was at risk of being put in the corner and avoided it with proactive footwork. Canelo steps his right foot over to trap Bivol in the corner. The step squares Canelo up, and Bivol pins his rear hand to prevent him from punching. He can now escape left if Canelo doesn't adjust. As Canelo adjusts, Bivol jabs him onto his back foot. His lead forearm pushes to help him circle out. Shuffling side to side prevents Canelo from setting his feet to attack. Bivol occasionally escaped without punching by timing his shuffle to Canelo's steps. After shuffling left, Bivol times his shuffle right to Canelo's lead foot step.
That's what you need. Pops him with that jab.
We asked Bivol.
Bivol sometimes used his shuffling footwork to set up his jab. He would, if not on the ropes, step back with a slight pivot left, then shuffle right once or twice to get Canelo to step left, then shuffle left to get Canelo stepping over to his right. First, a step back with a slight pivot left. Next, he shuffle right twice to get Canelo to step left. Then he would shuffle left to get Canelo stepping right. You watch Bivol's hips to see the quick shift from shuffle footwork to his normal stance, which he needs for punching and circling. Bivol steps back, then a shuffle right and step right. As he begins moving left, Canelo's jab gets him to restart his footwork trap. With his back on the ropes, Bivol uses a slightly different setup. His second shuffle brings him off the ropes. From here, Bivol again shuffles right and then left as Canelo adjusts to stay in front. Bivol breaks his typical rhythm by throwing a jab from his shuffle as soon as his lead foot lands, catching Canelo down the center line as he's about to step right. Bivol escapes to his right this time. Pushing off of his left foot to jab from his shuffle surprises Canelo, but it also means Bivol isn't in position to circle left safely. This is why he created space away from the ropes a moment ago. A defensively responsible fighter, Bivol also slips down and keeps his guard tight as he shuffles. Angled step back into shuffle. Canelo adapts his footwork here by pivoting clockwise on his lead foot. This positional adjustment exposes Bivol's center line and protects Canelo's, but it also gives Bivol more room to escape to his left. Having stepped left, Bivol creates space from the ropes and shuffles left-right-left, forcing Canelo to adjust. This time, Bivol continues left by pivoting on the jab. But Bivol doesn't stay in this stance, probably because Canelo is too far away to circle around or keep punching. He steps his lead foot back into a shuffle, then surprises Canelo by shifting in place to jab as he walks into range, then escapes around. Canelo displays one way to counter this footwork trap in the 6th round, by attacking the shuffle instead of continually readjusting. Canelo immediately attacks the shuffle, getting Bivol to shell up and revert to his tactic of backing up to the ropes, then rebounding off to escape. Bivol was too far off the ropes to rebound on the first attack, and Canelo pins him for another punch. Okay, that brings us to the end of part 2, and in the next video we will look at Canelo's offense and Bivol's defense.